I work with the Army in Afghanistan, specializing in military intelligence, trying to prevent the next 9/11.
Anthony Reynolds went from tracking down bad guys in Afghanistan to using those same instincts to outpace billion-dollar competitors.
We were beating Amazon, Drizzly, all of our big customers. We made more money than I ever made in my life. It's a very ruthless business. A lot of people think that dollars is going to instantly make everything easy. You have these titles and these levels that you want to achieve. Once you achieve one, okay, how do I get to the next one?
The same instincts that kept him safe in Afghanistan, built his company, was the one thing he did not trust in the biggest deal of his life.
We paused on the call. Do you want this deal or do you not want this deal? We had a lot of pressure from investors. We did not trust our gut. We lost a huge opportunity. And that was the worst answer to give them.
In this episode, we'll go over why the most selfless thing you can do is to be selfish.
I travel a lot. You miss a lot of important moments with family. Being selfish has brought me more happiness than any amount of money has ever brought me. How can I focus my time on my family, my friends, my well-being versus all of these external things?
How to find fulfillment in a world where the bar is constantly rising.
At some point, there's never enough. You're courtside at the game, you're closing this huge deal. It's never fulfilling. It was checking boxes on a list of things to accomplish.
And what abundance truly looks like.
You realize once you start missing stuff, tomorrow is not guaranteed. Our biggest or most valuable asset is time. We're all billionaires of time. You can never get time back.
Whoa. Before we get started, most of you watching are not subscribed. If you're into conversations about emotional intelligence, intuition, and high-level decision-making, hit subscribe. It's free, it takes a second, and it's the biggest way you can support the show. I'll keep bringing powerful guests and deep conversations. All right, let's get started. Give me a briefing of your background, and then I want to get into how you've used intuition along your journey.
A little bit about me. So I went to high school here in Columbus, Ohio, Pickerington, and graduated from Bishop Hartley. Went to Ohio State and enlisted in the Air Force. So I was 6 years in the Ohio Air National Guard, specializing in military intelligence. So similar to your Air Force background, love planes, love jets, always wanted to fly the F-16. And the closest thing I got was doing intel for it. So it was I think a formation of my foundation as an adult male, because I feel like a lot of my friends at my age at that time, weren't doing nearly as much stuff or, responsible for multi-million-dollar equipment or lives, etc. So a lot quicker, but also give me perspective differently when I came back to Columbus and worked. And it really, I think, influenced me to learn more about technology, being an intel specifically. So that was I was stationed at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. We were at Springfield, but they didn't have a SCIF yet for us. So we were at NASIC. And then I think towards the end of my career, we ended up leaving Wright-Pat, going to Springfield. It's a good base. It's a good base. That's the F-16s there.
Yeah. I think there was like I don't know what happened, but they asked me what job I wanted. And I was like, well, which ones have bonuses? Now, either those were only the maintenance jobs. And then reflecting on it now, those were all the high turnover jobs. Obviously, that's why there's a bonus, because they're struggling to get people to fill those jobs. So I was like, if I don't get a bonus, I'm not going, I'm getting this bonus. And they're like, well, you can't be here. You have to be up in Toledo. And I'm like, okay, now it all makes sense. Send them to Toledo into maintenance. That's where they're going to make me earn that
definitely
bonus.
Get you, check all those boxes, complete your training, do good things. And then you get it after taxes too, by the way. I don't know if they missed me when you suck up. The taxes are real.
Yeah. The recruiter always forgets to bring that topic up. Yeah. So you go through Air Force, and then I'm assuming, so you were specifically
so I was Air National Guard,
right?
and I then became, because of my security clearance, I was a DoD contractor in intelligence too. So I worked with the Army in Afghanistan and focused on targeting individuals. So I did some pretty, I think, cool high-speed stuff. And a lot of my Air Force experience really helped me. But it was definitely, I think for me, it opened my eyes and figured out very quickly what I wanted to do and what I didn't want to do. And when you go from Afghanistan, rolling up bad guys, high level, in the movie briefings, and it's kind of like that Jason Bourne, find the guy type stuff, to then going back to, Ohio and your training is just like very different and like a different mission, different job, it is what it is. It was very hard for me to say, hey, I want to continue doing this stuff because it just wasn't the same level. And then for me to continue doing it would require me to move to DC and then constantly deploy. And I said to myself, I know friends that died over there. And I was like, I don't know if, at this point in my life, if like, I think I've served my country. I respect everyone that does, but I think I'm okay with right now where I'm at and kind of getting back to, figuring out what I want to do.
Yeah. So you feel like you did your time. You're ready to move on from the Air Force. And then
Yeah.
where'd you go from
So,
there?
actually it was really interesting. I got an opportunity to speak at an event and talked about, hey, I'm a returning service member, looking for an opportunity and talking about the different stories and things overseas. I got offered like four different jobs, one from a US congressman, one from state senator at the time, Frank LaRose, who's currently the secretary of state of Ohio, and like a Cincinnati prosecutor and someone else. They all offered me a job like, hey, we'll hire you. You're a veteran. We're gonna offer you a job. And like after you do, the background check and all the things, right? You're qualified. Well, Frank was the only one that wrote his cell phone number on the back of the business card. And I like was between the congressman and Frank. I said, well, Frank's a US Army Special Forces veteran. He understands a little bit more what I went through and experienced. I think this would be a better fit for me. And it's in Columbus, working at the state house. So I basically had a 6-month transition program as a constituent aide for the Ohio Senate, working for State Senator LaRose and really just getting experience in what state government is, what business is, working with JP Morgan, working with Bank of America, kind of the major Fortune 500 companies in Columbus. A lot of people don't realize how much they lobby for laws to be passed or to not be passed. So it really got me exposure to the state and how the state worked and really helped build my network. Frank was amazing. He said, hey, use my name or whatever you need to help you find that next step. And it was a really good experience for me getting into interviews. I don't think I would have gotten the chance to because of, working for a state senator.
Wow. That's pretty dope. Working for a senator afterwards. Okay. So at what point did you make the decision to switch to
Yes,
refill,
yes.
which was
So
your
that's
startup?
actually the next step. I got an opportunity. JP Morgan, I think back in 2015, hired a bunch of former intelligence professionals and actually some current. They hired a bunch of people from the CIA, FBI, Air Force intelligence, Army intelligence for this team called KYC or Know Your Customer. And it was a very sensitive department where you basically reviewed customers' background and making sure there was no like terrorist financing, et cetera, or money laundering happening, trying to prevent like the next 9/11 type situation. So out of, I think the 70 people they hired, like 75% of them or 80% of them were prior intelligence or current people that held top secret plus security clearances. And it was really kind of cool to get that experience, but quickly found out like, you know, that's not where my passion was at that moment. And refill actually came from that. It was alcohol deliveries at the time from working at Chase. So we're in a conference room at Chase and we were working late because we were frequently working, past 5 o'clock. And co-founder, who
Startup.
was
Yeah.
also Air Force intelligence, I'm not going to say his name, but just he's still in the military. He was sitting next to me and we're like, we want to have beer delivered, like, or food delivered. We'd love to have a beer delivered to, because like it's after hours, let's, maybe, wouldn't that be cool if we got beer delivery? And like, I don't know if we were going to really deliver beer to the office, but it was just, you can have everything else delivered except for beer. And that's when our manager at the time said, why don't you create it? And we're like, sure, let's do it. And then we had like kind of the blessing from our Chase manager at the time, go ahead and be entrepreneurs. And it was a lot more exciting than what we were doing work-wise. So I don't know. I don't know if they realized what they kind of did, because we got the green light, and my partner at the time, we got this, I think within like like, I don't know, maybe like 6 months of us finding that this, and we didn't know anything about startups. We were YouTube, Googling, trying to figure out what it was. We went to meet with Rev One Ventures, ended up getting a co-work space from them, which they were actually pretty helpful. But we got featured in like so much press fairly quickly, like Columbus CEO magazine, like this is a pretty cool idea concept, that Chase was like, hey, you guys got to stop doing this thing. They weren't happy even though we had an outside approved business activity. I think I don't know if the expectation was, holy crap, these guys are really doing the thing that they said they were going to do. And then at the timing for my partner and I decided that, hey, I'm ready to go full time at the startup thing. We got accelerator funding, went through an accelerator program, our first business accelerator program. and had lots of success early on. And I think this kind of goes into probably that intuition question and kind of like trusting your gut, making decisions. Cause we made a lot of decisions that were good decisions, and we made a lot of decisions that were bad decisions. And I think that, I think the bad decisions or experiences really help you shape the future to make the next good decision. But when people talk about startups, I feel like we got our MBA from startups, from like the streets of doing the this, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that, talking to people, learning. My partner and I, we facilitated all the beer and alcohol sales, or all the beer for a lot of startup events in Columbus. So we, by nature, got invited or access to almost every event, and start to get to pitch VCs and figure out kind of what does pitching a VC even mean? Should we even take VC capital? Can we even take VC capital? And really kind of accelerating our path to, both doing it full time.
Yeah, I love with a new startup when you find your like unique leverage point where now you're able to get in like any event, because everybody wants to have like the alcohol delivered to their place, or get some discount on alcohol. So I love that that was like your
Oh,
like little
absolutely.
foot in the door.
It was pretty cool because,
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
because we were doing beer delivery, and like I think pioneered a lot of the alcohol delivery from a technology standpoint. A lot of beer stores where you can call them and they would deliver to your house, but to do it from your phone and digitally get an order to the beer or the restaurant was something that, or the location was something that was kind of more new. So it was cool for us to streamline that. But we found quickly a lot of brands, like a lot of breweries in town, wanted to have their beer at events because they wanted exposure. So because of the event, we got to get free beer from these breweries that are trying to get exposure. We just have to put their logos out there, so it was kind of a win-win for us. Like we get free stuff to give away. We'd have a representative come with us, they can answer questions, etc. So it was definitely a cool experience. Then I think it was something that we had to learn too, that we have to grow past events. How do we scale past events? How do we scale past just that excitement of the thing you're doing to actually being a profitable business that you can raise capital or you can exit one day? And that was, I think, our challenge and our journey as we grew the company.
yeah. There's I love that where everyone's trying to get because the brew world is so competitive. So yeah, getting into those events, that's a great idea. But yeah, then it's like, okay, that's cool, but it's like, how do we make this into like a real thing? That's yeah. So I guess, do you have a moment? Do you have like a time where you're like, kind of like, do I go down left road, right road? And then you're just like, my gut's telling me to go
Absolutely,
left.
Tom. I mean, I think for us, it was, there was definitely a few moments. I think there was a critical moment though. I'll talk about two. The first, we had a lot of pressure from investors or prospective investors to look at just being solely a technology company and not trying to be the Uber for beer delivery, but try to be the technology solution that makes beer delivery happen. And because at the time we had contractors that worked directly for the liquor agencies or beer stores that would do the deliveries. So we literally own the delivery market for Columbus. And we were beating Amazon, Drizzly, all of our big customers in beer and wine delivery. But the challenge was, how do we scale past the Columbus, right? How do we get past to the next market? And a lot of that involved us trying to raise capital. So I think I would say we went against our gut instinct to be a technology company first and focusing on that because of the investment pressure. Whereas we should have, I think, focused, and I'll explain why, we should have focused on doing what we were already doing, which was winning in beer delivery. So we had an opportunity after we had the numbers, the sales, the traction numbers. We were on some serious phone calls with Giant Eagle corporate, like talking to their head legal counsel, like their, I think, president at the time, and a few other folks to do beer delivery for Ohio and Pennsylvania for Giant Eagle. At this time, we we're under the impression kind of like Giant Eagle, we're going to be the technology company. Like we're taking all this advice from investors, et cetera. And we're like, I kind of feel like we still do the beer delivery part of it. Like we should own that. So and it does make sense to de-risk your business, right? You don't want someone to deliver beer to someone that is under 21 and then now you get sued and you have an issue and the state agencies coming after you, et cetera. So it does make sense from a risk standpoint. But, look at Uber. They've been able to do deliveries for people that are teens, deliver people, to and from where they need to go. And there's going to be issues, things are going to happen, but generally speaking, as long as you have a good system, things should be okay. So we had an opportunity in that call, multiple calls to get to the point where they're like, well, hey, we want to use you guys, but we do want to have a point of clarification. Do you guys want to do the beer delivery or do you want us to do the beer delivery? And we paused on the call because we knew what this question meant. Do you want this deal or do you not want this deal? We did not trust our gut, and we went with the sense of we're going to own the technology, and we're going to have you, like, we took the lawyer answer. We're going to own the technology. We're going to de-risk the platform and make sure you guys can do the delivery of the product since you already have staff in the location. And that was the worst answer to give them because they were immediately like, we're not interested in that, but thanks for talking to us. They wanted they wanted us to own the process. And this is before Uber Eats was even doing alcohol or anything like that. So at the time we had this opportunity, it was like a big blow to us because we had been working on strategic partners. We had a lot of internal champions to kind of get to that point, and it was kind of like very deflating to have the opportunity and then be like, well, and then you can't unfortunately go back on the call and say, no, we can actually switch and do that because of the rationale and reasoning we gave them was kind of like, we're set in this
Yeah.
just specific direction. And I think also that experience helped us understand to be flexible in business. Like, really listen to your customer first to help solve their problem and not dictate what you're doing because you may talk yourself out of an opportunity if there's something you can facilitate within your boundaries of, parameters of business. So, but yeah, that was a tough one for us where we, lost a huge opportunity and like it was pretty tough. But at the same time, we, definitely focused because of that experience though. The positive was we were listening to our customers more. A lot of breweries were interested in, can we do this at our bar or tap room? Can you order something here and pick it up to go or something like this? Is before COVID happened. So we got a lot of interest and ended up meeting some owners of major bars and restaurants in Columbus and got an investment from them to do contactless payments at bars and restaurants, more so like delivered to your seat before. I guess we weren't even calling it contactless payments then. It was like beer delivery to seat. And that was a huge, I think, catalyst for success in the company. And I actually broke off from doing the beer delivery management piece to specifically focusing on the point of sale or restaurant piece. We did the Memorial Tournament a few years where at the Boogie Inn. So they have a huge party afterwards, and we were doing their contactless, or beer to a section ordering, which at the time wasn't a thing. So it was pretty cool to get that app and that interest. And we actually had the Memorial Tournament ask us, hey, can you do this for our tournament? Like, we want that at our tournament. And that's when we start understanding like there's real potential here to do this at large scale events and functions where the friction, the customer's friction point is not being able to sell as much product because of the lines. So if you can alleviate the line perspective and have people facilitate orders, you can
Yeah.
potentially capture missed revenue or sales or increase sales. And then there's advertising to that too. So we got advertising from AB InBev at the time
Right.
to have their products featured at certain events and from within the really cool, I think,
No,
lesson learned to then opportunity.
I love what you're saying because I think I remember you telling me about, doing
Yeah.
something in the Blue Jackets arena or like the stadium and, thinking about the idea of when do you buy a beer or food or anything is like halftime, and like that window, however long it is, 30 minutes max typically. That's like not, you're going to have 10 times more sales than any other time. So it's like you're basically prolonging that window where they could
Yeah.
actually get it at any time. But really, it'd be interesting to see those people, like what the sales would be before halftime and like after halftime. Because if I know I can just order from my phone, I'm not going to go up and fight in line. I'm just going to like, let's hurry up and get it now before the
I think
surge
that
happens.
you're absolutely right.
There's,
At the time, that was, and this is us learning too, the market. So most of these stadiums and venues have a food and beverage like service. So like could be like a Levy or some type of concessionaire that has a specific contract to do food and beverage. For us to get that, even when we had the Blue Jacket opportunity, it was kind of a marketing opportunity for us to really pay to even get into to have the position to use the contactless payments because the F&B at the time didn't believe in it. They like, well, this doesn't make sense. People You know, if they're already making lots of money in their mind, like we're fine, we're not hurting. But you have customers complaining about it, and then like other people within the organization, like, no, we'd love this, but you have to convince this other customer, this other lever, like, hey, you're missing a potential opportunity. It wasn't until the pandemic that all of those people, and this kind of flipped to what I did Refill 2.0, all those people like that crazy guy that wanted to do beer delivery, contactless payments. Let's call him. We need help because we can't have people waiting in long lines. So instantly, the thing I was saying before became, you know, and I was actually working on the tech at the time, was like, it made so much sense to everyone now. But imagine if we had the funding and, you know, support years before, how much we could have killed the market.
Yeah. Yeah. There was for a year I lived in Brazil, and their football games or their soccer games, they would do this in the stadiums. They won't allow cans because if someone scores a goal, they'll throw their beers. They just go crazy. So what they'll do is during halftime when you're getting a beer, people they'll open a can of beer and then pour it in a plastic cup, which means the time, if you could just like sell a
Yeah,
beer and hand it, that's much faster than like, you want a
yeah,
beer? Don't get full. And it's just like that time's so critical. But anyway, that's just like I love the idea of like optimizing that for a customer. But I wanted to backtrack a bit of what you said of like the idea of your intuition with getting investment, or like with the investment pressures, what you said, like with the VCs. I think that is such a critical time for founders to have that gut check of when it comes to an investor, because there's so many things that happen with investors where it's like it it may look perfect on paper, but if something just doesn't feel right, you got to trust yourself with that, because you're getting down this path with another party that it can easily be steered the wrong way. Like another guy interviewed, he didn't understand fully that he gave up his rights to be CEO. So when it came time, the investor was like, "No, right here, you're done." And it was just, that it can, you got to. I think that's really critical to be able to
absolutely. I
monitor
think,
that.
you know, from a startup perspective, a lot of people get caught in the glitz and glamour of TV, of what happens, or I want to be the next Steve Jobs and the next this. And I don't think they realize how ruthless the business is. It's a very ruthless business. And I think there are good, I'm not saying people have negative intentions, but I think that a lot of investors are looking how they can return their investment. Like they might be excited about your passion and what you're doing, but
Yeah.
it's business from the beginning. And if the business doesn't work out, like you could have conflict later because of the business. So I think it's just to your point, like, is this someone I want to partner with? Is this something that I would like to do? And I think from a founder's perspective, and I think what was hard for us was getting past the excitement of the idea or what you're doing that you're passionate about, and getting more on the business practicality sense. I think allows you to operate from a clear standpoint versus making decisions that are passion based driven decisions. Like finally got an investor that wants to invest 150 grand. This is amazing. We can finally, like, you think if I just have this money, I can finally do the things I need to do. In reality, sometimes it's not the case, and it's a bigger issue or a product market fit issue. But I think a lot of people think that dollar is just going to instantly make everything easy. In reality, I think it doesn't do.
I had a cousin. He had an investor come to Columbus, and he was asking me about getting an investor, and I just kind of like laid it out, and I'm like, this isn't a good fit. And I was like, this isn't. There's a point where they can provide money, but really, what you want more is like their willingness to help you. Is this, I call it grandma money, where they just basically give you cash and they just like later expect money to come back. They're not really doing anything. So I said to him, this it could work out, but you need this like commitment from them that they're going to be like pushing this giant rock up the hill. And he basically, long story short, he was like hesitant on the deal. They 4x the investment because he was
Wow.
hesitant on it. I was like, okay, well, you know, just you just kind of like sat with your chips, like even a second. They're like, actually, here, we'll do a Series B round, and they they did the whole thing. I was like, okay, well, hey, you need a partner right now. You don't need just cash. You need a partner right now. And yeah, I kind of wish I was a fly on the wall just to see how know the details of what happened. But I was like, yeah, dude, that's
Congratulations.
great.
That's huge.
So you you did Refill 2.0. You ended up moving
Yep.
away from Refill, and then what year
So
did
yeah,
you move away from Refill?
basically I think it was back in 2018, 2017, 2018, around that time. I went back to JP Morgan and, at the time in the relationship and kind of focusing kind of on this new journey. And we had success. We basically exited the market and, sold our delivery right. We sold our delivery rights to the liquor store. So like the liquor stores had access to all of our customers, all the deliveries. And basically it was Drizzly that was coming in and cornering the market. So we got out when we did, we just couldn't scale
Mm.
to other markets without additional capital from the beer delivery side of it. And then the point of sale side at the time, the technology really like trying to integrate a third party technology into an existing POS system. There really wasn't API even availability to do at that time. It was mainly like a closed loop system. And the challenges we have, like when you send an order to a kitchen or you send an order back for someone to pick something up, you're having two separate accounts. Most bar owners don't want more accounts to manage. They want one account that has all of the product that can manage their inventory and quantity. So we had success and investment into doing that initially, but the friction point was the actual managing the inventory, not having two different settlement accounts, not having like, it's a lot to kind of go through, like trying to manage, like to get a bank account from a bar owner that set up an account 10 years ago to this account, like it's difficult to make. They're like, oh, my guy, Bill has a ledger and he does that stuff. And it's like all these little intricacies that there was just too much friction. We decided to kind of move forward or pause that piece of the business. But I actually retained full ownership of that during that time of the technology, just not the delivery of the beer from those stores to the customers in the Columbus market. So went to JP Morgan, was in project management, and then started playing with the technology again. I did that for like about 3.5 years, I think, close to 4 years. And this thing called the pandemic happened where tragic, experience. I know for a lot of people losing lives and et cetera, but there was a business need for what we were doing or had the ability to do. And I got phone calls from all those brewery, like I said, all the people that knew me and had my phone number. It didn't change. They were calling me. And, I think, the contracts or the opportunity to make capital came fairly quickly just to do contactless payments for a lot of the breweries. So think we were in like most breweries in Columbus during the pandemic, like at first, like initially, and we launched a free solution too, just to help. It was kind of like like a lot of businesses didn't survive, so we were like at this point, like, we could charge you $20,000 for this right now, or you sign a long term deal with us, and we are your only provider of the solution, and we will like have all these other opportunities. And that's kind of where we looked more towards that. So and then I, at the time wanted to wait before leaving to do something again, taking that leap of faith, as they say. And it wasn't until we were making enough revenue, customer transaction, investment opportunity, that I was able to leave. And we probably made more money at that time than I ever made in my life in the first 2 years after doing the business. But at the same time, we did have, we grew fairly quickly, scaled to the market, and really had lots of success. One of the biggest challenges though were our competitors that were better funded because of the timing of the market. So we had some people that point of sale systems, for example, that decided, hey, you know what, we're going to do the thing you're doing. And this is where you have to define your competitive advantage. Like, how can you still win in the market? So we had to figure out creative ways, what our technology does. And then we just recognize that no one's going to own this whole market. If we just get a certain amount of percent of it, we win. Like, we still win. So we kind of chased that. Unfortunately, timing didn't work out for us for certain things and decided to, like I said, exit that business. And it was a great experience. But it also, I think at the time for me, had a lot of tough personal challenges I was going through. We won't get into all those details, but just kind of my life. And just like when you select a partner and do those things, you kind of have to make a good choice. And I think that was something that led me to later in my life to have an intuition, like right now with my current partner, that, hey, I'm making gut based decisions based off of not making gut based decisions before in my personal life. And it really has worked out for me, I think, to trust my intuition. Don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore the things that you think, hey, should I be asking this question? Should I not ask this question? But again, in business, we all, we have the ups and downs. We go through the experiences. But from that role and that experience, and I tell people openly, like, I think sometimes in life you get the best from failure, times like in learnings, right? How do you do things better next time, or how do you not do the thing? And for me, like we didn't have the success we wanted. I wanted to exit the business and be like retired. That didn't happen at all. So, but for us, and for me specifically on an individual level, I had the opportunity to work at JP Morgan again. And, before I was doing entrepreneurship there, they didn't like it the first time. The second time, my manager and team like, this is a great idea. Go for it. Your way, go for it again. And like, but there wasn't anything really entrepreneurial in JP Morgan. So then the third time I go back there, I got hired to do entrepreneurship because of my experience, because of my failures, because of my successes. So it was like a real cool, I think, full circle moment to get back out there working with entrepreneurs and then really kind of cutting BS. There's so much, like once you've been through it a little bit, you can tell when someone's like making BS and kind of not when you're talking about stuff. It's like an easy thing once you've done stuff to kind of tell. So I was able to really succeed there and quickly got promoted, traveled the world, spoke at different conferences in London, I was in Zurich, Mexico, TechCrunch, all the different things. But it was because of remember I was saying earlier, the MBA on the streets of what not to do. All those life lessons and bumping my head and screwing up or winning, making wins and figuring out how to actually get a customer really helped me be successful in the corporate world and quickly rise because, from someone that's, just practicing in school to actually living entrepreneurship are two different things. And it's just natural. So it was a very easy for us to do.
That's cool what you're saying, because someone I was talking to, they said something about my intuition led me down the wrong path. And, in some ways with what you're saying is like, there was a point where maybe a stepping stone didn't hit the way that you wanted to, but in the bigger picture, you're now doing entrepreneurship on a
Yeah.
kind of like a mentor level. So therefore, like you doing this, like if you were to believe the idea of my intuition brought me down the wrong path, it's really just like the stepping stone where it's like on a bigger scale. And that's actually is what has qualified you for your role now is as such a good entrepreneur mentor. Because if you have as an entrepreneur, if you have a problem and you're talking to a mentor who's never had a problem, that they can't, they can't help you. So you've been through so many problems that you're like, actually, I have a Rolodex of like, yeah, I know what
Oh
you're
yeah,
going
I got
through.
stories and I can't,
I've
I've
put
got
them
so many
through in my
stories I
head
wish
plenty of
I would,
times.
I can't share it here and they're just like wild stories, but you're absolutely right. And I think it really was, and actually at JP Morgan, and I think I might be still listed via Techstars, but a mentor for their Techstars global program. And I was very highly requested as a mentor to help different programs. I did Atlanta. I did, I think Florida, and there was another market, I think it was Detroit, really supporting those markets with startups that needed that guidance, needed that help. And I still talk to some of those entrepreneurs today that reach out to me for help or advice and really, helping them, see those, basically having that different vision. Like I'm not in it every day. I have a different perspective and I'm very direct and very blunt. I think it really is helps, I think, provide clarity. But yeah, that role at JP Morgan really helped me, I think, get to my next step today where I'm in venture capital, at A11Y Capital, kind of that, I think my, next to final stage of where I'm heading. And it been kind of circling loop in finance is like, how can we invest in startups that, from my experience at JP Morgan, understand the thesis of the market at an early stage and really make impact, quantifiable impact. So it's been we're really just right now focusing on building out a pipeline of opportunity and raising the actual capital of the things we need to do to get the ball rolling. But it's been a very humbling experience, but it's also something that it's just like, if you'd have asked me, like we talked about earlier on in high school, like, would I be in this world? I'd be like, there's no way. I was going to be like, I applied to the CIA, I think like 20 times by the time I was 26. So like they didn't accept me, but I did get to work in intelligence. Yeah.
Like, no,
So yeah,
this
I
one,
was a junior in high
Jesus.
school when I applied to CIA, I think my first time. Then I applied like every month after that. And I was like, I wanted to look
That's the problem. They've been watching you too long. They're like, we've been watching this
like,
kid since he was
so
14.
that was kind of like another dream that didn't ever work out. But it was cool to be in the intelligence space, but I didn't know I would be in this world. And it ended up being a space that I just kind of fell in love with, right? Passionate about entrepreneurship. And you really look back at history. One of my favorite podcasts is the Founders Podcast. You look back at history and you see kind of what the building blocks of what America's built on. It's entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurs taking risk, chances that create huge impact for everybody. I mean, like the folks that invested in your business, I mean, they did that same thing, right? Like it's like taking those risks and opportunities early on that are crazy big. So it's a huge thing.
I think what's really cool about your intelligence background, that's so important as like a foundation block for an entrepreneur, is that you really need to observe and just understand what they're going through and how they're going through it. Where like one of the favorite things that we did with GripMat is a lot of people don't know, but like at least 75 to 80% of our sales are actually, they come from women. And where people are like, oh, I thought like it'd be guys because it's typically guys are more mechanics, but we're actually not solving the problem of where do you set your tools. We're solving the problem for women of what gift do you buy as someone who's a mechanic. So it's like it's just it's a different problem, which means you're just communicating differently. So the thing is, when I would do trade shows, what's beautiful about the trade shows, I mean, as like getting intel, is you're seeing thousands of people every single day walk by your booth. Like what catches their eye? What do they say to you? And there's been so many cases where it'd be an old man and his wife walking by, and his wife would be like, "Babe, did you see this?" And the guy would be like, "Are they selling tools? I got tools. I don't need any more tools because I got tools on the grip mat." And then she's like, "No, it's selling the mats under the tools. What would I need that for?" And she's like, "Because so you don't lose your tools." And then the guy would be like, "Oh, I never lose my tools." And then she'd say, "Well, remember when you were late for dinner because you lost the thing and you're upset?" And then she'd like, "I'll take two." And then it didn't really dawn on me for a while, but then when we started selling online, there were people who would leave comments like, "I bought this for my dad for his birthday and he loves it." And then that would just get so much attention. It was like, oh my gosh, this has been like right in front of us the whole time. Like the women are buying it. Like they're like, that's the problem is like, when you buy someone a gift, like how do you want to feel? You want to feel like, "Ah, I got the thing that's like, that they really enjoyed." That's the problem that we're solving. That's the kind of like intel I think about, is like, if you can really understand that as an entrepreneur, like that is a skill that is like so important to that, like you're just hitting it differently than surface
Absolutely,
level.
Tom. I think you make an excellent point, and thank you for sharing it. I think, looking back, I know initially when we first started doing beer liver in Columbus, we implemented a lot of unconventional tactics, techniques to actually get customers, like flyers in the morning on cars, different things like that, like just hitting the market. I think that's never been hit before like that. But understanding who your customer is or what customer segments you have, I think is so critical to success in business. And when you mentioned women, it literally pinged in my head, like some of our biggest sales were on Wednesday. And you know why? Wine Crush Wednesday for women. Women would order wine
Oh,
during the work week on Wednesday. Women, here's the thing about the difference between women and men, at least from our data. Men would order last minute, we need it for this thing. I got to get it now. Women
oh no,
planning.
the
So
women are
women would order
planning.
throughout the week, and
Yeah.
the peak sales would be Wednesday because they're ordering the product to have they like Wine Crush Wednesday, but they would order and plan things like chips, snacks, everything. Men, on the other hand, would make like your Friday, your Saturday night orders. That's mainly men. So it was something that we had to.
Yeah. They're at the party
Right,
ordering it at the
exactly. So that
party.
was the thing that we had to learn to, is like, okay, during the week, or we need to start targeting women more at this time of the week, because this is something that they're going to be more prone to ordering, or a conversion on that sale versus we were one of like, we ran Instagram ads, like one of the, like there wasn't businesses really doing it in Columbus when we did it. And the conversion rate on Instagram ads for app downloads was crazy. I'm talking about like, 100% each week increase on downloads, just because there was no other competition. Like, I mean, it was crazy. And like, Here's the other thing I'll say. Instagram,
The dirty days of
yeah,
like Facebook
yeah,
ads was off the charts. That was
and they
like
gave you
peak
like a
time.
credit, like credit limit or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it was based off nothing. So we were like, oh, this is amazing. We're gonna make all this money back. It was like a cool, you didn't have to pay for it in advance thing, but no, that was a great experience.
I would love to, we would make funny videos with Crit Matt, which helped so much with the like the way we did ads. It would be I think like this is messed up for me to say, but I would love to do like an ad for you guys based off of at like an AA meeting. Like you're just like there to support AA,
Yeah,
or like maybe in every like whoever you're sending like delivery to, you put in like a AA card. Because like, maybe you're just like
yeah,
drinking at home alone, like, hey, just in case. Because the way that they advertise that now with alcohol is there'll be like an ad for alcohol, they'll be like, drink responsibly. And they don't it's just like kind of a vibe killer, where if you, I think it could be kind of funny, but also like serious, like, hey, really, if you need AA, like
So,
here is the
interestingly
card.
enough, we had a lot of support from Mothers Against Drunk Driving with our beer delivery service because a lot of the time, I think more than
Yeah,
half the
you don't have to
time, the reason why
drive.
people would
Just
go get
do it at
drink
home.
and drive drunk was they wanted to get more alcohol. So that was something, but because it was still alcohol related, though, it wasn't something we are able to officially ever get that support. But we had a lot of messages from folks in that organization supporting what we were doing, trying to decrease, and we had some actual reasons to do that. So, but no, man, that was like a really fun time in my life to kind of have those experiences, and I think kind of put me where I'm at today. I'm very about trusting my gut, making intuition based decisions. Now, I also look at logic and facts and information, but if it doesn't feel right to me, like I may not do a thing because I don't feel right based off the information I have. Versus, I think in the past, I was maybe more inclined to take the risk to do something. And like I said, it's where it's led me to my current partner today, which has been amazing to have. And, I said making intuition based decisions, but, full circle, I think, again, I could not have predicted this in high school, let alone at any other point in my life. This is where I'd be at right now. So, but I'm glad I'm here.
I think that there is a stage that I'm in now, and I think other people are in this stage, but they're not able to like see it or accept it. I'm at a stage where it's like the question isn't, is this a good idea? The question is, do I want to be committed in pushing this idea forward? So, because I can come up with lots of good ideas. So it's not about do I want to, you know, like, is it a good idea? It's more like, do I want to be doing this every day? Do I want, so the idea of, is it exciting? Is it fun for me? Is it like, that's the idea that I want, where I feel that that is valued less than like the practicality of a business, where people be like, okay, well, we could capture more market, or I'd rather you capture less market and you're just excited to go to work every day versus you have a larger market to capture, but you're grinding into a way that it's going to be a ticking time bomb. That you're just like, you just hit a day, you're like, okay, $10 million deal, fuck it. I don't even care. I've seen so many people just like crash their business into the ground because they hit that point where they're like, I don't care. It's like, I'd rather see you pick something that feels exciting, that you like to do, rather than so like, instead of prioritizing the market, the size, what am I
It's an
excited about?
excellent point, Tom. I think that's, great you're sharing that. And I definitely emphasize with that or emphasize with it because I think for me, and this is kind of the change I went through. I think I've been more connected to talked about this, to the earth in general, like saying that to say like more connected to energy and just positive things, like being around positive things, I think is important to me and staying away from negative people and negative things. But I always feel like, and especially in America, you can always want more. Like, like in dating, like a lot of times I know friends that they're never satisfied. I want the next biggest thing or this, that. I want the girl that's this or that or this or that. You'll never be satisfied if you always want more, right? Like there's never going to be satisfaction because there's an endless amount of things that you could do or want. And I think that once I don't know, my approach to philosophy is this isn't from outside, it's with inside. And I think once you can figure out what makes you happy, you'll be content with the things that you're doing outside or correlating to that. So if that is, hey, you know what? I have a job that just makes me $200,000 a year. I'm very fortunate. I'm very happy. I have good health. Then I have a partner, it's amazing, then maybe that's your happiness, right? To your point, you can always, man, I just want that next promotion to get to 250K. Once I get to 250K, then I can do that. And then I get to 300K, I get to 300K, then I can do
Yeah.
that. And then we can move to this house and have more of an, it's like you never stop, like with the nicer house, the nicer car, the nicer thing, the nicer that. And I think once you figure out kind of and I know it's different for you because you're talking about a business, but like figuring out that point, and that's kind of where I'm at in my life now is I've kind of accepted what makes me happy, right? And that was such a critical moment for me to not have this burning desire to continue to try to shake the world of opportunity and make the next biggest thing.
Yeah. No, I like that because I mean, you've bounced back and forth very well between entrepreneurship and just
Yep.
the professional side. I'm taking this role. I don't need to be the CEO, which is great. I love talking about this like reflection for myself is, the idea of really contentment. At what point is contentment? It sounds like your gauge of contentment is happiness. Yeah. And really like seeing the idea of looks like you had the ability to kind of let go of like your happiness being rooted in the
Exactly.
idea of more.
Exactly.
Tell me more about that. Like, is there a point where you recognize
Yeah.
letting
I
that
think
go?
I would say just being in the startup world, like literally chasing success where I had opportunities that I could have left at different points and, happy today when I left at that moment. But in that moment, I felt like I needed more, wanted to win more, wanted to do more, et cetera, right? Wanted to chase this thing, wanted to chase this deal, chase that deal. And I feel like once you kind of like, again, when you have the world at your fingertips and you're doing amazing things, it's great. It's a fun, thrilling feeling. But at some point, it never like there's never enough of the thing that wants more. Like you're courtside at the game, you're closing this huge deal, you got this big customer. It's never like really. I was never fulfilling. I think happiness in me was external. It was more like checking your check boxes on a list of things to accomplish from a business standpoint. And I think after having that experience and and even
Yeah.
working in corporate, like you have these titles and these levels that you want to achieve. And once you achieve one, you're like, okay, how do I get to the next one? Once I kind of felt like there's like seeing that process and working with people. And by the way, when I was at JP Morgan, I had some of the best leaders ever, like the best managers ever in my life. And like, they're still some of my closest friends, people that I trust and share details with. And it was just a truly incredible experience because I think they cared more about the person even than just the work that what the person was doing and how you can develop someone. So but for me, I learned from those people that had worked in corporate for 40 plus years, there's something more important about being with your family, being present in moments, because you realize once you start missing stuff, because from an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and
Yeah.
even at JP Morgan, I travel a lot. You miss a lot of important moments in your life with family. In the military, you miss a lot of Thanksgivings, Christmases when you're deployed, et cetera. So after you miss so many of those things, you're kind of like, well, what's important? Like tomorrow is not guaranteed. And our biggest or most valuable asset is time. We're all billionaires of time. We all have billions of seconds of time that we are, that it, you can never get time back. That's the one thing that, I think is the most valuable asset in the world. And what you do with your time is so important. And I think that's kind of where I've decided is for my, I think, experience in JP Morgan is, and just as an entrepreneur is like, I want to figure out how can I focus my time on my family, my friends, my well-being, my health and fitness versus all of these external things. Like, I hang out with my friends, but I don't care about not going out to a game or an event. Like I could care less. Like I want to prioritize myself and my family and my partner over anything else. And I think kind of being selfish a little bit has brought me more happiness than any amount of money I think has ever brought me.
It's interesting what you're saying of the idea of being selfish, or like you're yeah, like the idea of prioritizing you, which in a way what you're saying
Yep.
is prioritizing your family too. Maybe not prioritizing a party, your friends or whatever. So yeah, that's that's a very mature like level of growth. I like that. Cool, man. So Anthony, if you could, you know, go back to your like talk to the junior high version of you that's applying to the CIA, what would you what would you tell that version of Anthony about
I think
intuition?
I would first probably tell myself if I could in the past, be patient. Everything happens for a reason and be patient. I feel like earlier on, I was rushing to get to 18, rushing to get to 16, rushing to get to 18, rushing to get to 21, rushing to get certified in training and intelligence, rushing to get to my first deployment, rushing to get my second, rushing to work with special ops. And I felt like through that time, I would tell myself, be patient. Things will happen in due time. But I think the biggest thing is from trusting your intuition is listen to that feeling in your gut. Listen to what it's telling you. Take the information that you have and, be critical, ask questions. A lot of times I think socially we are afraid to ask clarifying questions. My partner might tell you I ask too many clarifying questions, but I would rather be clear than unclear and misunderstood, which can cause conflict, right? It's like, or not knowing the thing that is happening or what this is or that is. And I think in life, sometimes when we have unclear situations, we're like, it's socially awkward for me to ask this thing to actually understand, should I trust my gut or not? Ask the question. It's okay to speak up. It's okay to ask why. Ask why more. Wait, why do we have to do this? It may not be appropriate in certain settings, like a team meeting in a corporate environment, but maybe ask your manager afterwards, hey, I'm definitely on board to support the plan, but why, what's the reason for this approach? I'd love to understand better so I can be more successful in the future. Phrase it as, I want to learn why you're doing this, the reasoning, because that actually may help you understand what you're doing better or how to be successful in the future. So I think it's okay to ask those questions because otherwise you may trust your gut. Like, I actually hate this job because we have to do this. We have this stupid task that I don't like to do. Got to do these reports. It doesn't make any sense, but you don't really know why you're doing the report. You don't know, there could be a specific regulatory reason, or there could be hey, this is the process we followed, or, maybe no one's actually asked the question why. Why don't you help develop the new process? Why we should change this going forward for other people. So I think ask questions, trust, listen to the inner voice, inner self, and also find a mentor. Find an idea or someone that you can talk to that's like unbiased. So not like a family member, someone that may know you professionally or that you trust to share information with. And maybe it's multiple where you can ask questions that are unbiased and like, what's your perspective on this? Because sometimes when you're in the moment of something, you may not see clearly because you're fogged by the environment, but someone on the outside might have a perspective that you don't. They could say, hey, actually, you're on the right path. This
Yeah.
is what it's like for everybody in corporate that first year. It's a lot to adjust, but guess what? You're on the right path. That second year, here's what you do. Here's the opportunity. Keep on this and keep on that versus being discouraged because you're in the fog of the work and not really seeing clear kind of the opportunity. I think the words I've used a lot is clarity, gut, and just like those are like very important to me. It's clarity, like a very important word.
Yeah, I think it's, interesting what you're saying of the idea of like asking why, because really, we can do that with ourselves a lot. Like, why am I taking a job I don't like? Why am I, not prioritizing me or not prioritizing my family? And, we can get real clear if like, okay, well, I'm taking this job that I don't like because I feel scared. I feel like I can't get another job. I don't have options. And it's like, it really, if, sitting with that fear, or maybe even potentially, like you said, having a mentor who's been through that process too of, yeah, it can feel scary, quitting job, especially if you're going like transitioning into like very different fields. Like if you're blue collar worker, a mechanic, and you're like, well, I want to get into doing a startup or I've always wanted to do, banking or whatever, entrepreneurship. It's, that can be scary. And, really seeing asking yourself why in that type of situation, you could feel like you won't like, really the concept of the scarcity is internal, like yourself, like you don't have what it takes to make it to the next step.
So
Um, yeah,
no, I was saying absolutely.
go
I
ahead.
absolutely agree with what you're saying. It's like a lot of times we go through these moments, it's like we have a lot of these fears, and sometimes they're what's the word for it? Not that they're not practical, but maybe we like heighten those fears more than the reality of the circumstance or situation. I remember talking to serial entrepreneurs worth hundreds of millions of dollars here in Columbus and talking to them about something I perceived as like, man, this sucks to have this experience. This is a terrible experience. X, Y, and Z. And he's like, that's nothing. I just lost $2 million today on this stock. It's another day. Guess what? Are you healthy? Are you happy? Like, do you have family? Can you go run? Can you go walk? Because there's people in the hospital right now that wish they could walk and run. And it's like, it really, I think, put in
Yeah,
perspective for
yeah,
me. It's like really kind of tuning in those things that are important because in reality, it's like all relative to what you're experiencing. But sometimes you just need that outside perspective to kind of rein in or provide clarity. Maybe you are right with your intuition, or maybe you are right with your heightened fear, but it sometimes help having that outside perspective.
yeah. I think it's important and healthy to have like allow yourself to feel the fear. Maybe the reasoning of like why the fear is coming up is, maybe because, well, when I was little, I didn't, we didn't have much money or whatever it is. But it's kind of nice of what you're saying of like that mentor that you had is really kind of highlighting how much
Right.
you are in abundance. Like, we really take for granted the idea of having the ability to walk. To some people, that's a huge abundance. Like that is a life changing. That is such a different form of abundance. And yeah, there's a point where I would be in different countries, like more poor countries, and it hit me like these some of these poor people in these poor countries. My personal Facebook account is more worth more than their entire like net worth. I could go on Facebook and hit, if I hit up like half my friends, hey, bro, I'm in a bad situation. Can you send me 10, 20, 100 bucks? I could easily get $100
Yeah,
in like an hour. Like these guys don't have someone that they can talk to that would give them that has $100. So it's interesting to, change the perspective of like of really seeing how abundant we are. I do think that there's a point, a confusion point in that where people will look at there's always this thing like you shouldn't feel bad. Like someone else always has it worse. Like there's
right.
always someone who has it worse. So that's why I think this is like a two-way street. Like allow the feeling of like, feeling fear, but also just like take a moment and see how abundant
Absolutely.
we,
And I
we
think that
truly
it
are.
goes back to the point of wanting more. When you have that self reflection point, I think it kind of lets you, it's like slowing down a little bit, like think like, hey, you can always want this more thing. And there's nothing wrong. I'm a capitalist through and through. I think, the opportunity market for people is huge. But I also think that our culture is so geared on the next biggest thing, like keeping up with the Joneses, right? Like my new neighbor's got a new truck. I got to get a new truck. Like there's that, it's like a
Yeah.
competitive mentality. But I think that, you know, the majority of my friends, I think are good about being happy where and present in the moment and where they are. But I think there's just that space out there where people will continue to fight that more and want more. And they're just never, I think, satisfied. But I agree with you. Allow that fear to resonate. Maybe it's there for a reason, right? Like it can help motivate. I know fear has motivated me to be successful. I've been on a fitness journey lately and like, hey, I don't want to be out of shape. Like
Been
dude,
seeing it on
I
Facebook.
was out of shape. Like man, when I was in Afghanistan, I was like jacked. Like I was like working all the time. Came back, got, worked out a little bit, but I was so fit. Like I think I had a six pack for like 3 or 4 years after that. And I stopped lifting. Like it was incredible. But from that point on, just really got out of shape and not, it was maintaining and, slowly creeping up on the scale and the weight. And then to the point of like recognizing when people are family, like, hey, are you, you should go run. Like when your grandma tells you to, you should go for a run. That's how you know you need to stop eating the cupcakes, stop eating the pizza. You have to get out there and do something. And that was kind of a reflection moment for me. My grandma was telling me I need to lose some weight. I'm like, all right, man, apparently I need to lose weight. So I'm down. I'm down almost like I think 60 pounds now. Been in the gym. Yeah, been in the gym,
Are you really?
hardcore, really just, and this is kind of
Congrats.
more on like this journey of me just focusing on me, right? And like changing my lifestyle around and really being present in the moment and, prioritizing the things I want to do and et cetera, and not, being pressured to do anything else anyone else wants to do, but mainly for health and fitness, but also the fear like, hey, I don't want to be that guy again that was at that weight. I don't want to be that guy that felt like that. And now I feel more confidence, get a lot of looks from people positively reacting to the things that I'm doing. But it's just kind of like, hey, I want to continue down this path. I want to be, I have a kid, I have a son, and I want to be, looked up upon. Like, man, my dad looks like, the Rock. My dad's the Hulk. You know what I mean? I want to be the dad at the baseball games that is healthy and fit. I don't want to be the guy that's coughing because he's overweight. I
Like ready to
won't
fight
buy
another
Sunday.
dad.
Right.
Yeah. Just
But,
like
and
ready to having a beer, just like,
absolutely. And this actually goes to the more thing though. There's so many people at my gym, and I'm probably like digressing a little bit conversation. There's so many guys in my gym that are extremely muscular, like big dudes. Like I've never seen, I'm like, do all the bodybuilders work out here? I have that piece of me though. It's like I'm focused on myself and what brings me happiness and just being fit. I'm not competing against these guys on there that are like massive dudes because if I ever were to compete, like I can never get enough. There's always gonna be another bigger guy. There's always gonna be the other big guy in the room. It kind of goes to that point again of what makes you happy and focusing on that and not allowing the other distractions to sway you into what you think is happening.
and a slight different way, like you could adjust that perspective is like, there is a point where like you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, so you not being the most fit person in the room means there's a lot of people at your fingertips to learn about new types of fitness. It kind of, I used to work with someone, and you know who he is, but he had a thing where he needed to
You're
be the
talking about,
smartest person in the room. And when he told me that, I was like, kind of took me back. I was like, that's kind of scary, like I
yeah,
mean, what happens if you're not? Like that it just happens. But anyway, but one thing I wanted to ask you, you the idea of
yeah,
constantly wanting more. Have you seen this? Because what's beautiful in your journey is that you've came full circle to like, you're like pitching the idea. Now you're to a VC. Now
right.
you're the VC, which I also kind of, you mentioned about the idea of like being patient. Like that's beautiful in your journey of like just be patient, where like your the whole path is like it's coming, just chill out. But anyway, so now you're like coming full circle. Are you seeing companies who have the idea of like constantly wanting more, wanting to grow, and that's like becoming a red flag for you as
It's
an
a great
investment perspective?
question, and I don't want to just blatantly say like Gen Z versus Gen X or anything like that. Stereotype any group of startups. But I will say generationally, I have noticed the younger generation of entrepreneurs, like in college or just graduated, seem to be more focused on impactful startups more. And I would say, and maybe they have more access to capital than maybe we did, but they seem to be more focused on their vision and passion versus the want of more. The entrepreneurs I've met are a little bit older,
Okay.
typically, and maybe have some more experience. I don't say more experience, but a little bit older, seem to be focused more on wanting to achieve more, but I understand the practicality of it. So maybe there's a piece of it where entrepreneur from a later generation or later period, is looking at things more from a business standpoint versus the lens of passion of what they're doing. So I see a lot of less startups that are seeking, at least in my field. Now there still exists, like as I mentor startups, some of the startups I mentor or have mentored have crazy, absurd expectations of raising capital. And I try to like, hey guys, this is not practical based off of X. This is the market. This is what's actually happening. I'm telling you, you need to change. Yeah,
This is
yeah,
your value.
yeah,
This
this is
is
not
what you
gonna
want.
happen,
It's
and
not going
and,
to
like,
happen.
just
Yeah.
understanding, like, reality of things, and I think a lot of times there's not practicality or reality and stuff, so I still see that, like, there's still this, like I said, this crazy expectation of things like Steve Jobs, but I do see a lot of new companies that are more concerned on doing the product that's gonna change the world, that's impactful, but also, that is able to do things without this want of more. Now, I will say the biggest issue I've noticed with early stage companies is they don't really understand their customer as fully as I think they should. I think there's less focus on customer and more focus on product. And I think there's a lot less focus on how to get there via roadmap, which I understand there's going to be, mentorship or just you need a good partner to help you get there. But it seems like a lot of startups that I've met are really focused on, their vision. They have an amazing product, but they don't really know how to get there. And they don't really know how to sell to their customer, or they got their customer and they're not really in tune with their customer. So there's a little bit of a gap, I feel like, that I've seen when I was an entrepreneur or operator, and even other startups like yourself and people that have gone through stuff. I wonder if there's like, I'm gonna call it the Instagram entrepreneurship. There's so much entrepreneur stuff on Instagram. I think a lot of people see that. You have great ideas, but there's no like, they haven't gone through a business accelerator. They haven't taken, learned, gone through different things. I'm not saying you have to go through that stuff, but it really does help to challenge your thesis test it, go through some type of mathematical process
Yeah.
versus just, going, I think that you can tell the companies that have gone through a process versus the ones that haven't.
I think also to grow on your point of like the Instagram entrepreneurship, there's also a point of there's so many startups I talk to, like, how would you market this? Like Instagram and Facebook ads. Like that, okay, like that's like a lever you can pull. That's like a tool in the toolbox, but like you're missing the whole 99% of the toolbox where people just want to like throw money at ads and just pray it works. Where it's like that's there's a lot of businesses out there that do nothing on don't even have an Instagram account. So, or if they do have an Instagram account, they're not like actively pulling in business from that. So it's, yeah, I think, yeah, there is a little bit of like the Grant Cardone style of just, that's kind of a thing. I maybe it just in my world, the Grant Cardone is kind of like dying down because I don't click on it anymore, but I hope it's dying down. There's just so much of like money. You gotta have money. I got a
Write it
jet.
off.
I got a car.
Write it
I
off
got
your taxes.
a wife that's 20. Yeah. Yeah. It's like debt's not bad. You have lots of debt, but like, okay, Jesus Christ, I'm not getting in debt to buy a jet. Yeah, that is where my heart, what you're saying, like they're like a shift to the mission based, which I think is great. But I think that's, I don't like to talk bad about the older generations, but they're big on the
Right.
concept of ownership, of like, I want to own a house. Look how many cars I have. Where the younger generation is like,
Right.
I want to travel. I want to, yeah, like let's rent a car and drive it. I don't need to own the car. I don't need to be seen with
Right.
like, look, I've got 12 cars. Just like, what's actually shocking to me in my hometown, when I turned 16, it was a thing. Like, as the second you turn 16, you are getting your license. But now it's not even a thing. They're just like, why do I need, I can talk to my friends right here on Instagram. It's like, dude, what? Like,
Yeah,
that was freedom for me.
absolutely. I think a lot of change
So,
socially that's happened, and social media, I think, is a big impact. And I agree with your point as far as like that Grant Cardone was a perfect example. And I also expand a little bit. Our thesis of what we're investing in is accessibility. So we're really touching a lot of entrepreneurs that may be personally impacted by a disability. So their passion levels might be a little bit higher than and more nuanced than
mhm.
someone that was doing something that is
Yeah.
selling to, XYZ customer. Like they might be creating a product because they're blind and they want to help other people that are blind, or they have a disability and they want to help create more opportunity for someone else. So we're in a space of a world where there's a lot more heart into what they're doing. And so I think that's what we've seen, but it's really cool to see the ones that have heart and then the business acumen behind it. Looking back historically to it, a lot of the major businesses that were founded by person with disability because of the, thing they're trying to change, or their disability is actually a superpower that allows them to, do incredible things. Like a lot of folks that identify with ADHD, have this ability to be in these manic states where they can like hyper focus on things and use that to their advantage. So stuff like that you don't really think about, you can use like kind of like that as a superpower. Like I can work for 8 hours straight, not even in high intensity, and then you're tired afterwards, but you just do crazy amount of work and you're able to leverage that with maybe perceived weakness as a strength. And you see a lot of that in the community of folks we work with.
Yeah. That's interesting to think about, like the concept of an ADHD person, like for a normal person trying to focus when things are crazy, like that it's hard, it's actually, they got to put effort into focusing. Where the ADHD person is like, they're constantly putting effort into focusing. So if you just turn up the craziness, like, nah, I'm still
Right.
gonna, this is my normal. so, so that's cool. I got someone in mind that I'll introduce you to. I'll actually, I'm going to look over her website because we had like a conversation of a business that she wanted to do, of basically like had something to do with the foods that are in America and that the kids are eating. I think she believes that it stemmed to her child, I think, being autistic. So it's interesting of like the direction that you're going with the companies that you're investing in, because there's like a different level of dedication that you have from the founders. Like someone who has a disability is like, look, I
Right.
know this inside out. Like this is my life. So it's just different than,
Right.
I got this idea for a rubber tray.
It's different. It's relative. Yeah. Please send the information. Love to learn more. And it's a space that I've found passion in. And really what I've seen is it's kind of like I call it like an overlooked market where a lot of like stuff in space companies aren't typically focused on being invested in, but they end up being acquired. Like a lot of technology that's in the iPhone was invented by companies that are helping people be more accessible or persons with disability. Even the video call we're on right now, Video Relay was invented for a person with disability. So like a lot of this technology we use today was actually designed specifically for persons with disability. It ends up making it more accessible. When you think about curb cutouts, for example, when someone's walking down a curb, like the cutouts where you can put strollers through, that's made for people with wheelchair, people with disability, right? Making it more accessible, and we
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
benefit
Yeah.
from it. So if you really think about, could we all benefit from a more accessible world? And I think typically you find less friction from a user experience standpoint, which increases revenue, sales, etc. So that's kind of how we're looking at the market. Is a more accessible world means more profitable opportunity and more people can participate.
Yeah.
You-
That's beautiful, Anthony.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate
so
the
much, man.
opportunity.
Yeah. Well, it was great having you on the podcast, brother. You did it. You stayed all the way to the end. Thank you so much. If this episode gave you something real, join our community by hitting subscribe. And if someone came in mind while you were listening, send this to them. We're better together, and the right conversation can change someone's direction. I want to invite you to my Saturday newsletter called Emotional Mastery. 5 minutes each week to sharpen your intuition and strengthen your emotional intelligence. To sign up, it's the top link in the description. Now let's keep this momentum going and check out this next episode. I'll see you in there.